All right, looks like we are now recording. So welcome again, everybody. If you'd like us, we let everybody trickle in. I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, what part of the world you're tuning in from. You can be as vague or specific as you like. If you got a bird of the year for 2023, what bird did you get? Or what was your bird for last year? And if you don't have one yet, that's all right too. We're going to go over that. And then if you like, what is something that you're grateful for today? It could be something from nature, or it doesn't have to be. So welcome, Kate. Welcome, Connie. Welcome, Jasmine. And welcome, Lindsay. And to everybody. So also make sure you've got something to write with, a paper and a pen or pencil. It could be in your nature journal, or it could be separate from your nature journal. You can also use a voice recorder like the one on your phone if that is easier for you. And I guess I'll let you know, my bird of the year for 2022 was American Crow, and my bird of the year for this year is Canada Goose. All right, so you can go ahead and get started. Just rearranging the videos to make sure I can see everybody on my end, but still see my notes. And let me just double check. Did you guys say that you could see the slideshow? Great. Now, I do invite you to, if you like, to turn your camera on. I think it gives a little bit more sense of community when we can really see each other, but do whatever makes you feel comfortable. The most important thing is that you're here in whatever way is best for you. So what we're going to do today, we'll go over what is the bird of the year idea and how that can help you connect to nature in a deeper way, this fun tradition. Then we'll have some prompts to get to know our new bird of the year better and to reflect on last year's bird of the year. Then we'll have some time for anybody who wants to share or discuss. This is a free workshop. There is a suggested donation if you're able to contribute. Any amount is appreciated. That helps me be able to continue to give these free workshops for our community. And if you're not able to at this time, just pass it on with an act of kindness some other way in your life. So why bird of the year? I found out about this tradition a few years ago. I think this is my 6th bird of the year, something like that. Wow. So one way that we can keep track of the birds that we see that's really popular is keeping a life list. Raise your hand if you've ever kept a life list for birds. Yeah, so I just see one hand, a couple hands. Yeah, so this is a really popular way to keep track of the birds that you've seen and when you first saw them. You could also do a life list for each year. How many birds did I see just this year? But I find that sometimes for people who are just getting into birding, that can be really overwhelming. There are so many birds to try to see and learn how to identify them all. So one reason I think it can be nice to have a bird of the year is that it helps you to realize that to love birds, you don't have to learn every bird, but you can go in depth with learning about one of them, have a deeper connection, make it feel more special to you. And even if it's a common bird that other birders might not get as excited about, you can get excited about it every time that you get to see it. And it's so bird of the year, it's the way I see it, it's about restoring our relationship to the natural world, getting a deeper connection to this place and to these species. And like I said in my description for this program, the bird of the year, it's not a commitment. You don't have to do anything in particular, but I think of it as more of a program that runs in the background when you're doing nature journaling or bird watching or gardening or whatever it is that you like to do outside. And so you don't have to worry about doing it perfectly with the bird of the year. It's just something to give a little reminder to your brain every time you see that bird. You're like, oh yeah, that's my bird of the year. And it helps you to pay a little bit closer attention. And
no, I mean, look, I think,
but like I said, if you don't have a bird of the year yet, it's not too late. The way this typically works is the first day of the year, you go outside and the first bird you see is your bird of the year. But if you didn't know that on January 1st, or you're just doing it now, you could, one thing you could do is just decide on a certain day that the first bird you see that day will be your bird for the rest of the year. Or you could even just pick one that you like and you want to focus on. There are really no rules here, whatever makes it work for you.
Giving in and giving in. Or the free box.
Or choose on the Chinese New Year. That's a good idea. That's January 22nd this year. Thank you, Kate. That's a good idea. Or for anybody who's joining really late in the fall, you could choose one on Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year in September or October. So if you have any, I guess if you have any friends later on you want to share it with, you could suggest that. But yeah, there are no rules.
Friday.
And yeah, even in 2021, it was
I'm gonna do editing today, so the piles are.
I was outside with my dad and we saw a mourning dove. And my dad said, "Oh, could that be my bird of the year?" And I said, "Okay." Yeah, for anybody who is not, yeah, can everybody mute, please? I thought I said it so that everybody would get muted when you came in, but yeah, thanks everyone. You can all hear me though, right? I assume you can, because you've been listening this whole time. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it was December 31st at 4 p.m. and my dad said, "Oh, can the mourning dove be my bird of the year?" I said, "Okay, sure, I guess, for 8 more hours." I think that's a pretty funny story. So anyway, if you don't have your bird of the year for this year yet, just listen along for some of these prompts and you can keep them in mind later when you are going outside. And as we go, just let me know if you have any questions. So get your piece of paper or your nature journal and pen or whatever you've got. So my first question for you is, what is your initial reaction to getting this bird? Do you feel excited? Do you feel a little bit disappointed? Were you hoping for a different bird? Do you just feel kind of neutral, not either way? And why? So I'm going to put on a timer for 1 minute and just you don't have to write in full sentences. Don't worry about grammar or anything. And just jot down some thoughts. All right, that was a minute. So wherever you're at, finish up a thought if you need to. My next question for you to think about is, what do you already know about this bird species? Or what do you think you know? Because sometimes we know things and then later we realize that it was actually incorrect. So what comes to mind when you think about this bird? What do you know about its behavior or habitat or anything about it? So I'm gonna give 5 minutes for this one. Just again, you don't have to do full sentences or anything. Just get down as much as you can, whatever comes to mind. Starting now. 30 seconds left. It's okay to write down things that seem super obvious too. All right, that's time for that one. So just wrap up your thoughts. You can always come back to this later. Right, so my next question for you is, do you know what the song or call sounds like of this bird? And if you don't know, that's okay. But if you do know, or if you think you know, take a minute to make a visual representation of the song on your page. So you could write down words of the mnemonic, what it sounds like, just some descriptive words, or use lines or music notes to represent the sound. And then later you can check to see if you're right. Or if you already are sure that you know it, it's just reinforcing it in your brain a little bit more. And so next time you hear it, either way, you can listen even more deeply. So just a minute, starting now. All right, now moving on. Do you know of any stories or folklore or any cultural connections or symbolism related to this bird? For example, last year, my bird of the year was American crow, and I found out through some research that there's a Hindu story about why crows and owls fight. And for the goose this year, that made me think of something much more familiar, at least to me, is the goose that laid the golden egg, even though that's not a Canada goose specifically. So yeah, our something, this is, I won't have us write about this right now, but it's something that you can keep in mind, maybe jot something down if you think about it. And oh, I was going to have us, I think my slide is not there, but I was going to also have us think about what questions do we have about our new bird of the year? What are we curious about? What might we want to learn more? So I'm going to put the question, I'm going to give us 5 more minutes for thinking about questions, starting now. 10 seconds. All right, once again, that's the end of this 5 minutes. So wrap up whatever you're thinking. Thanks, Lindsay, for helping out in the chat. Missed a question because I was so busy writing my own questions. All right. So now that we thought about what do we already know and what are our questions, we could think about what resources might we be able to use to learn more. Maybe search from the library or from a website about birds, such as All About Birds, the website from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Maybe there's somebody you know who is knowledgeable about this bird species, and you could ask them what they know about it. So I recommend searching in your local library's catalog to see if there are any books about your bird species or books that might have information. And I recommend searching now and ordering them right away, because there were a couple of books last year about crows that I was intending to read. My library had them. I was gonna put them on hold and I never did. So I never got around to it. So I would recommend looking them up and ordering them right now, just to make sure you do it if you want to do that. But you can always do it later. So you can think about that. And one more prompt. Oh, actually, we've got two more. One prompt to think about is, what might this bird mean to you in your life specifically? Does this bird have any kind of metaphor for you, thinking about? It reminds me of. That's our prompt. So we're not projecting or anthropomorphizing this bird. We're not saying this is what this bird is. We're just saying this is what this bird makes me think about. So for example, for this year, I got goose. I saw a little family group, or maybe a family, I don't know, a small group of geese flying over my house when I went outside. And oh, the Audubon website, thank you for that link. So yeah, so geese migrate in family groups. And so that made me think that maybe this year, the goose can help remind me that I can stay connected to members of my family that live far away. So just what does it mean to you? Or what does it make you think about? So this is probably something that could use a lot more reflection, but I'm just going to put a timer for 1 minute and see if you can jot down what comes to mind. All right, that's a minute. So just to get you started thinking about that idea. And our last prompt for our new bird of the year is, actually, I'm not going to give us time to write about this one either, but just something to think about as you go through this year and you see a bird from time to time. Keep in mind, what does this bird need? And what's something that you could eventually do to give back to support this bird's habitat or conservation. So maybe that might be something like habitat gardening or donating money to a conservation project or putting up bird feeders or a bird bath. Maybe it's sharing your stories and the experiences that you've recorded in your nature journal and helping to teach and inspire other people around you to learn more about this bird. So every bird needs something different and we can all share something different. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm gonna share some prompts for reflecting on your bird of the year from 2022, if you have one. I don't know if everybody does have one. So I'm not gonna have us go through all of these in prompts because I want us to get to sharing. But again, this is something that you can think about. And if you're new to having a bird of the year this year, you could just file these away in the back of your mind and kind of starting to think about where is this journey going to take you over the course of the year. So reflecting on last year's bird, what was your initial reaction to getting the bird of the year in January 2022? Was it excitement or disappointment? And has that changed in any way? How do you feel or think about your bird now? What's the most interesting or surprising thing that you learned about this bird, either through your own observation or through outside research during the year? Did the bird have any particular metaphorical meaning for your life in the past year? And did you learn anything about yourself? And did you do anything for conservation or to help give back to the species of bird? And finally, how do you feel like your connection to this bird has deepened or changed over the course of this year? So you can think about all of this, and if you want to, I invite you to take some more time after this workshop to write about these questions. So now I would like to open it up to some sharing and discussion. If anybody would like to share what bird you got this year, any of the prompts that we just did, what is it making you think about? And you could also share about your bird from last year if you like, and any nature journal pages that you made recording your bird from last year. So basically anything that you want to share about all of this. And yeah, so if you are more comfortable sharing off of the recording, just let me know and I'll pause the recording for you. Yeah, Kate Ryder, were you just raising your hand?
Yeah.
I
Just
think
apologies
I
if
can't hear you. I think I never.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Apologies if my family wanders around in the background. My daughter just woke up and she's in like her fluffy robe. It's very cute. Anyway, yeah, so I didn't do bird of the year last year, and now I wish I had, because I just realized like how great of an opportunity it is to kind of reflect on your year as well, and just kind of this different lens. But my bird this year was the red crested cardinal. And I already did a little bit of research and I found out it's not actually a cardinal. It just looks like one. So it's kind of like, it just got me wondering about bird names and how birds get their names, and like common names versus taxonomy and all that sort of stuff. And I'm, I am relieved it's not a zebra dove. That's usually what I see first thing. And the red crested cardinal is really pretty. And that's and that makes me feel a little I don't know, a little shallow, I guess. But it's a nice, really bright thing to see, and it's fun. It's not native to the area, and so I realize like what it needs is just kindness and understanding, because it didn't choose to come here, it was brought here. And so trying to just see it and appreciate it for what it is and what it is here, but then curiosity about where did it come from and what's an environment like there. And then the metaphor that I think of is that it's another one of those birds. It's like you don't usually see it in alone. It's usually in pairs or in groups. And so I spent last year doing a lot of my work on my own and just kind of, and through Zoom, but not really building partnerships here. And so thinking like, how can I work together with others? And then I also wonder like about what its relationship is with we have a northern cardinal here, and then wondering if I do see them ever together or anything like that. But yeah, thanks for organizing this.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Kate. You have a lot of good questions to get you started. Oh, and the other really interesting thing about questions that I learned relatively recently is that when you ask a question, the part of your brain where that happens is still lighting up for about 5 minutes after you ask the question, even if you're not consciously thinking about it anymore. So your brain is still working on the problem, even when you're not thinking about it. So I think when we're asking all of these questions now at the beginning of the year, it's just kind of giving our brain something to chew on. And then when we happen to come across more information throughout the year, that connection is already there. So we'll be like, oh, this is the thing. Like, here's the information. It's already got a place to go in our brain. So that can be make it easier to learn than just like, let's read this whole book about this bird and try to stuff in all the information. So yeah, I like and I think it's okay to appreciate a bird because it is beautiful and colorful, and that makes us happy. I think as long as we also are thinking about how we still appreciate birds even if they're not colorful. We can appreciate them for their own reasons too. So yeah, thank you, Kate. And also liked your point about the bird names and where do they come from. Like, I know Canada goose, which is mine. A lot of people call it Canadian goose, but it's actually Canada goose, I believe named after a person whose last name was Canada. So now I'm wondering, why is it called? And that's kind of like one of those birder trivia where if you're a birder and you're in the know, you're kind of like, it's not Canadian goose, it's Canada goose. But now I'm wondering, like, why is it called Canada goose? Who is this person? Who is named? Why is it named after him? What was he all about? So yeah, lots of interesting things to think about. Well, actually, yeah. Would anyone else like to share? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. This is non-judgment zone. We're all just here to support each other. Marcia? Oh, let me get you unmuted.
Mute. Oh, there, I'm muted. I tried 3 times to unmute, so.
Yeah, I put everybody on not able to unmute yourself just because some people were getting unmuted, and I didn't want anybody to be distracted as we were writing.
Little background music. So, anyway, I had an interesting experience this year, not necessarily with my bird, that too, but my hawk simply, I guess was in the native tradition, hawks are messengers and bring messages to you, and you can send messages with them. And I didn't really spend that much time with the hawk, but near me, there's some bird nests, and I have watched them for a while, because I walked in my neighborhood during COVID, and I would see these little birds, and I would see hummingbirds nearby, but the hummingbirds would make a smaller nest. So I just didn't have any idea what this really nest or bird was. And I got a little concerned because there's construction and some of the bird nests were knocked down, which was cool because I could see the inside was all lined with feathers, right? But on the other hand, I'm like, oh no. And then the one tree or bush near me, which is a desert willow, started having more nests, and I had no idea what they were. So I decided I'll draw them, I'll look, but finally I took out the Cornell Lab app that has sound on it. Because I mean, the little bird I would see would be just too far, and it just kind of looked like a little brownish gray bird, and it just, and it seemed like I just couldn't, it wouldn't sit still long enough in binoculars or anything. And I found out that it's a verdin, which this is one of the most northern areas that they're in. And then I called Audubon Society, or a reserve that's nearby, to ask about it, because I'm wondering about it, in the nests, and it's coming further north, I guess, with climate from Mexico and other places. So through a series of events, they were like, all my observations, they said, were really great. I'm a novice, I'm a generalist. And they had me get in touch with some more local birders, and they basically said that the verdin is doing fine, but they have been spotted in my area and in a place called Kern River Preserve, which is the Kern River has an abundance of animals and birds. So, but it was the sound app that helped me identify it, because I'm like, wait, I ran back and got it, my phone, because sometimes I go out without my phone. So that was really cool. And then I was sitting nearby out there. I'll go and sit once in a while, and I saw another bird. That's what made me call the Audubon, because the verdins, the males, have kind of a yellow head, and I hadn't seen one, and I'm like, oh, there's this yellow head, it's this and that, and that really solidified that what it was. So anyway, it was just a fun story for me, hopefully for you, but really fun. So like when you said that's not your normal bird, it's becoming a normal bird here, like it's kind of interesting as I guess the climate changes. So yeah, and then the juncos on the bird of the year, which I'm not sure, it might have actually been a hawk if I looked at my notes while we were talking, but I wouldn't know what kind of hawk because it was too high. But anyway, when I was out walking yesterday, and I got into a little ravine, and all these little birds were juncos, not sure what kind, just started flying around, and all I could think of was Cinderella. Remember like, how some people get so into birds and the birds are comfortable around them, and the little birds would come and they put the dress on her and everything, and it was just magical, so magical. So, and anyway, all right. I probably have more stories. There was a rare bird that I got to see, a white streak-backed oriole, that birders, I ended up being with this is a couple of weeks ago, with all these birders who are driving from all over to see this bird in somebody's yard not too far from me. And I just happened to run into the person out, and I had binoculars, and they said this was happening. And I said, well, can I invite myself to your yard? And they were like, yeah, sure. And so it was like all these people ticking off the birds of the year. And so that was pretty cool. And because normally I guess it's on the East Coast. Anyway, so there you have it. Oh, no, it's fun. I'm really a novice, but so there you go.
Well, you might be a novice, but it sounds like you've gone really deep with these particular birds and trying to learn more about them, which is awesome. And also sharing some good ideas for resources that we can use, reaching out to local birders and not being afraid to ask somebody if we can go birding in their yard, because there are some cool birds there. So that's awesome too. And as Erica put in the chat, love the observation that climate is affecting the birds that we might see. And yeah, I would like to make sure everybody who wants to share gets the chance, but if we have extra time, we could come back to you. I would love to hear more of your stories, Marsha. So thank you. So is there anybody else? Just raise your hand or click the raise hand button. You don't have to be on video if you don't want to. I can even stop the recording while you're talking if that makes you more comfortable. Kyla? Kyla or Kayla? Let me get you unmuted.
Oh, thank you. Both actually. Either one is fine. But yeah, hi. I just came in like 10-15 minutes ago because I was in a meeting with my advisor. So I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the
Welcome.
recording. Thank you. So the bird I got for Bird of the Year, and it's my first Bird of the Year, is the blue-gray gnatcatcher. So it's year-round here in Florida, where I'm from, Southwest Florida. And I was a little disappointed at first because I see them so often. And I was actually waiting around to see if maybe there will be another bird that will pop up to see if I can name it my Bird of the Year. And then a crow popped up, and so I decided to keep the blue-gray gnatcatcher. And I was disappointed at first, but now I'm super excited to learn more about it. I realize it's not year-round in a lot of states in the US. I believe maybe just the very southernmost part of the US and then the rest of Mexico and Central America. So I don't know, I'm finding the beauty in it a bit and appreciating my local birds and my backyard birds. Something that the blue-gray gnatcatcher reminds me of is I see it often at the park, which is where I usually bird. So I started at the park is where I started becoming more like confident in IDing bird songs and bird calls. So I'm realizing the blue-gray gnatcatcher actually has a really significant meaning to me. And just like finding out cool facts about it, like the nests are made out of like lichen and spider webs, which I think is just very Floridian. And so I'm finding a lot of pride in just this little bird, and I'm looking forward to like observing it the rest of the year since I'm lucky enough to have a Bird of the Year that I can view year round. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think it is great when we can realize some of the birds that are really common where we live are actually pretty uncommon and rare where other people live. So that can just help us feel even more grateful that like, wow, I get to see this bird every day. And maybe having a Bird of the Year that we see more often is helping to reinforce that connection with it even more than something we might not see as often. So yeah, I hope that you have a lot of fun observing the blue-gray gnatcatcher this year. Yeah, and Erica's saying in the chat, she feels the same way when she saw the American tree sparrow last year. Maybe it's the inspiration to see the extraordinary and the ordinary. Or as I've heard Jack Laws say before, even if you've seen a million juncos before, what is this junco doing on this day? What can we learn about junco-ness, what it's like to be a junco that we've never noticed before, even if we've seen them a million times? All right, anybody else? Jasmine? Oh, right, let me get you unmuted.
So I think I might have the opposite problem where mine is a great horned owl. At least I think that's what it was, because I went back to look at my eBird because I wasn't paying attention. I kind of forgot about the Bird of the Year. So I had to kind of do some digging. I have a feeling it was probably something else, but I didn't make a note of it. So I just went with great horned owl. And my reaction was like, I'm probably not going to see it very often. But I'm excited to learn more about it. I didn't actually see the owl. We just heard the hooting a couple nights ago. So yeah. Oh yes, Avea, these were the ones outside the window. And I think this might be the pair that I saw mating on December 24th. At least I think that was mating because I saw the male like pop onto the female. And it was like flapping its wings for a little bit. And so one of the things that I learned about the great horned owl is that their territory is 1 square mile approximately, which surprised me. I'm going to have to double check that. It seems a little bit smaller than I thought it would be, just because I thought that, you know, they're so fierce, they're probably like defending these huge areas, but maybe a square mile is pretty big. But that excites me because it makes me think that maybe there could be a nest somewhere in a mile radius. So
Those are some good questions. Maybe if they have a nest, maybe you can find it. And now that makes me wonder, do owls have a difference in their territory and their home range? So if anybody's not familiar, territory, I believe, is more generally a smaller area that they defend more fiercely. Like, this is my territory. But a lot of animals have a home range, which is the area that they might traverse over the course of the day. So yeah, that's something I'm wondering now too. Also wanted to point out Ivea's comment from the chat a few minutes ago. Just learned about blue-gray gnatcatchers. They have the coolest supralorals. And if you don't know what supralorals are, then now you have another thing to research if you want. And Marcia also says there was a sighting of a snowy owl in Orange County, California. And there was a sighting of a snowy owl in Hawaii a few years ago. That's pretty unusual. Would anybody else like to share? Oh yeah, and Mary Jo in the chat saying, because you travel to different places during the year, you need a bird there and here. So that's something interesting too. Curator says, wait, what? A snowy owl out here? If anybody else wants to share, again, just put your hand up. There's no pressure though. Marcia again. Let me just make sure, is there anybody else who wants to go before I let Marcia have a second turn? Okay, I don't see anybody, but if you change your mind, just raise your hand. So you can go ahead, Marcia.
Okay.
There we go.
I just wanted to say that the article mentioned the snowy owl in Hawaii a few years ago. That was on the snowy owl in Orange County, and also the snowy owl in Orange County was like on the news. It was big because of course birders were going to see it. So the one article I read said that they think, they're not sure how the bird got there. Possibly it hitched a ride on a freighter. You know, it got stuck on a freighter and then it just got off on land and it kind of made itself at home. So there's talk on whether they should help it get back somewhere or see what it does, or if it hitches a ride on a freighter again. But it must be a very curious owl, or was got relieved to get on land again. If it's, so, but interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
And that makes me wonder. I wonder if the owl was curious, because scientists have kind of figured out that different birds, different individual birds of the same species have different personalities, and that makes some of them take riskier behavior or safer behavior. Now I wonder if there's a connection between the type of personality the bird has and how likely it is to be found in a weird place. Like, did the bird just get lost? Were they not very good at navigating, and that's why? Or did they were they more curious birds that explored farther?
I like
And,
what Ivy has just put up about the owl might have floated there on a coconut.
Monty Python joke. Yeah, Kate. Oh, right.
It's interesting because it is, we're like the most isolated islands in the world. And so it is interesting tracing how the different birds end up out here. And different, but I would think that there's probably a lot of rats and mice on those freighters. So it might have actually been a very happy bird, if that's how it traveled across. But we do trace migrations, and my husband's interest has been in weather. And so he's been following like how the winds move and how the storms move. And we do have a lot of birds that end up getting, a lot of the native birds they think came, because of storm blowing them across. And so it is interesting watching as climate change affects the common weather patterns and stuff as well, and how it affects migrations, and then how, other ways, like that birds would end up here. And then there are a number that were purposely introduced actually by the Audubon Society, was a leader in that here. But so it says they found rodent bones. It was eating rodents as opposed to small birds. Yeah, so we do, and we have a barn owl out here, and we also have, but there is a native, that's what I was going to say, there is a native owl that we do have out here. So at some point, or an endemic owl out here, and so at some point it had owls do naturally appear out at some point. But it is interesting about the different characteristics of the birds, and so that makes me wonder, the birds that do end up out here, if they have different behaviors than other birds. And then also, is natural selection going to, in the more curious birds, are those going to increase in number because those are the ones that are going to seek out new habitats as things change? Yeah, I don't know, lots of thoughts just from one bird.
Yeah. Yeah, so like you brought up that weather patterns can also influence bird behaviors. That's a good point too. And then, yeah, about will the more curious ones be able to find new habitats and basically be more adaptable during climate change? There's book, The Genius of Birds has a chapter that talks a lot about like birds being adaptable and that kind of way. I would recommend that for that topic. So we're almost at 1 o'clock. I can stay longer for anybody who wants to share, but just as we're finishing up, again, if you're able to make a donation, any amount, I really appreciate it. I'll put that information into the chat. But again, if not, I hope that you can pass on the gift with an act of kindness in your own life or your own community. And finally, I would like to invite everybody, it's 1 o'clock. If you've got to go, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Otherwise, I would invite you to just quickly put into the chat, what is your biggest takeaway from this workshop today? How will you take this with you and apply it in your life? Or what are you the most excited about to explore with your bird of the year? Karen loves the inspiring questions, wants to go on with learning and writing. You're welcome. But just read something that said any place is the furthest place, which makes any place very special and unique. That's interesting. I'll have to think about that. Love the point about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary and looking for what each individual bird is doing on that particular day. It keeps the world interesting. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. Curious to see how many questions I'll be able to answer by the end of the year. Yeah, we might not find answers to all of them. We might just have a growing list of questions by the end of the year, and that's okay too. Biggest takeaway this year is going to be fun. I can't wait to ask my new birds all sorts of questions. Excited to have my first bird of the year. Feels like a commitment to this new interest, and I like what someone says about restoring relationship to the natural world. Yeah, and so just saying the bird of the year thing, it doesn't have to be like a commitment, but if it helps us to kind of stay focused and maintain our interest in nature or nature journaling or bird watching, then if that's helpful to us, then that's great. 2023 is off to a good start. As someone fairly new to birding, I'm excited about the opportunity to do a real deep dive into my bird, the eastern bluebird. Go with the flow rather than make something an assignment. Allow. Yeah, let's let it happen and see what happens to do it. It doesn't have to be like homework. Kyla says, this is my first year committed to nature journaling, so I'm excited to have pages filled with observations, questions, and drawing about the blue-gray gnatcatcher, specifically in my backyard. Definitely finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, like others are stating. Wow, thank you all for sharing your takeaways and reflections. I think that was a really nice little summary for us. So again, if you've got to head out, I hope that you have a great day. I'll stay on for a few more minutes just in case anybody wants to share who hasn't shared yet, or if you just want to chat about birds and geek out about nature. So thanks again for coming, and I hope you have an awesome day. I think I'm going to stop the recording now. So if you're watching the recording, thank you for being here too. And I hope you have a lot of fun exploring your bird of the year.